everyone, welcome to Streaming Science. I'm your host, Mackenzie Atkins, a graduate student at the University of Florida studying agricultural communications. I'm originally from Polk County, and I came to UF in Streaming Science because of my love for agriculture and science. We're coming to you live with our electronic field trip from the UF-AEC North Florida Research and Education Center, Suwannee Valley in Live Oak, Florida. Streaming Science is a student-driven science communication platform at the University of Florida in the Department of Agricultural Education and Communication. We'll be taking question breaks today throughout our program, so be sure you're entering questions into the chat box and let us know what school you're coming from so we can give you a shout out. Let me introduce you to our experts. Jay, could you introduce yourself for us, please?
Hi everyone, I'm Jay Capasso. I'm the Row Crop Extension Agent in Columbia County, which is a county in North Florida. And with my job, I work with farmers in my community and help them with plant health issues. Most of my farmers grow watermelon, peanuts, and field corn. Those are our biggest crops. And I also get to sometimes go into the schools and talk about agriculture. So I'm really excited to be here today with Streaming Science.
And Kelly, could you introduce yourself for us, please?
Hi, I'm Kelly Aue, and I'm the Suwannee River Partnership Outreach Coordinator, and I'm based here at NFREC Suwannee Valley. And I work a lot with water quality and quantity, specifically with stakeholders, and we use science-based solutions to help move projects along to help reduce our impact on our water system.
Thank you for introducing yourselves. Kelly, could you tell us a little bit more about where we are specifically right now?
So we are at the North Florida Research and Education Center, Suwannee Valley in Live Oak. We're based on 400 acres. And if you look behind me, we actually have a research project that's happening here. It's with turmeric and it's involving media. So in the state of Florida, we have super sandy soils that does not wash off of the root system very well. So they're trying to figure out if maybe it's pine bark or if it's coconut fiber and different things like that, which will actually wash off of the roots a little bit better.
That sounds like a fun and interesting project. So our theme for today's program is From the Ground Up, and our topic today is all things hydroponics. As we learned in our last EFT, soil is the building block for our food, agriculture, and environmental systems. But with hydroponics, we can grow plants without soil, and we can use a variety of materials to grow plants in a sustainable way. Jay, can you tell us a little bit in your own words about hydroponics and what it is we need to know about hydroponics?
Yeah, so hydroponics is a subset of horticulture, and generally what we're doing in hydroponics is growing vegetables out of a water media. Usually in agriculture we use soil, but we can also use water. We just have to condition that water media in a certain way, and a lot of different vegetable crops are grown that way in greenhouses. It can be a very complicated system, or it can be a very simple system, and I'll give you a demonstration on how simple it can be by showing you how you can do it at home or in the classroom with a 5-gallon bucket.
That's great. And a term we often hear when it comes to our food systems is sustainability. And we know that there's concerns about having enough food to feed everyone and also protecting our environment. So Kelly, can you tell us about sustainability and how research centers like this one work on sustainable agriculture projects?
Absolutely. So we actually do a lot here with sustainable agriculture. We kind of call it precision agriculture is kind of tied in with that a little bit, but we're trying to help our farmers make the most money while also reducing their impact to our water systems while being able to still feed the world. And so we have so many projects here. We do about $30 million worth of projects here, research projects here at our center. So there's a lot that happens.
That sounds like a lot that's going on. And some would say that hydroponics are an urban farming solution or a way to grow food where places that can't have large farms or gardens. Would you say that's correct?
That is true. We do hydroponics in urban areas because it's often done in a greenhouse, and with just a little bit of space we can grow a lot of vegetables. So it's often done in densely populated areas or urban areas.
That's awesome. And before we get into the thick and the news about hydroponics, do we have any questions from our viewers for Jay or Kelly or about the Research Center or sustainable agriculture? Good.
All
right, guys, we have one question from Kayla in the chat, and she wants to know what plant grows best using hydroponics.
So I'm not sure if there's a plant that grows best using hydroponics. There are a lot of different plants that we use in the hydroponic system. Today I'm going to teach you how to grow lettuce, how to plant lettuce. That's a common crop or common vegetable that's used in hydroponics. So there are a lot of different vegetable crops that are used in hydroponics.
That sounds great. So let's move on, and we'll have more questions throughout our program as we enter our different segments. So one really cool cutting edge possible sustainable solution that we're testing here at NFREC Suwannee Valley is called a freight farm, and it's operated and managed by agricultural and hydroponics expert Wanda Laughlin. Kelly, can you tell us a little bit about Wanda and her role here?
Wanda is amazing. That's what I'll start off saying. But she's our protected ag manager. And so anything that's under a structure, whether it's the freight farm or even this high tunnel that's behind us, she's in charge of making sure those projects happen. And she was unable to be here today because she's actually teaching a hydroponic tomato class here at the center. So if you hear any chatter of people in the background, that's where Wanda's at right now.
That's awesome. And we actually have a video for you. Wanda's going to take us on a tour of the Research Center's freight farm. So let's watch that. I'm excited to see and check it out.
Hi, my name is Wanda Laughlin. I'm an Ag Assistant 2 and the manager of the Greenhouse Protected Ag Program here at the North Florida Research and Education Center in the Suwannee Valley. Today we're standing in front of our newest endeavor here at the Research Center, and this is what we call the Smart Garden. It is a freight farm, so it is in controlled environment agriculture. So inside this unit, in this project, there are 15 of these units across the country. This is the southernmost located unit, and we've been running this since January. It was delivered in December. We started sowing seeds and running the unit in January, and we did our first harvest in March. All of the produce that is produced inside the unit is going to a local food bank. And for our community support, we are working with the Ag Engineering Department on campus as well as our extension in Suwannee County with our Master Gardeners for use as volunteers. So it is volunteer driven and community based. Right now we have kale growing, so it's one crop. Everybody is growing the same crop, so it's all kale. So if y'all are ready, we can go inside and see what the unit looks like on the inside. So now that we're inside the Smart Garden, I'd like to show you around and show you some of the technology and some of the growing areas that are inside the garden. Okay, so we're going to start off in our growing area. This is our nursery area. So this is where we start off. So we have 2 growing stages. So we start off on the bottom, and then as the plants mature, we move them to the top, and then we adjust the lights accordingly. And then once they're ready to plant, these panels that you see behind me come down, and then we plant them out and we finish growing them in what we call our cultivation area. The unit pumps water up through the tops of these channels, and then there's pressure compensating emitters that irrigate every channel individually. So this is a water efficient unit. So we use about 5 gallons of water a day, and they are top irrigated. So at the top of every one of these panels is an irrigation pipe that comes through. There's 2 of them, one for the left side of the panel, one for the right, and every individual channel has its own drip emitter at the top. So it's just a slow drip that is gravity fed. So once it drips, it hits a wick that is inside. It is compressed between 2 pieces of foam, and then the actual plug is sandwiched between those 2 pieces of foam up against that wick. That wick is the only thing that holds moisture in this system. You see a combination of blue and red lights behind us. Blue and red are the main drivers of photosynthesis. So these are LED low emitting diode lights. So there's not a lot of heat that comes off of these. There are some heat. They have different effects on the plant, the blue and the red. So we have a ratio, about an 80 to 40 ratio of red to blue lights. Red causes more stem elongation. The blue tends to have more of a widening plant canopy. When I'm in here working, the plants are actually asleep, and I'll use a green headlight so I don't wake the plants up. So it's a very sensitive growing system. So when I mentioned that plants go to sleep, we don't think about plants sleeping. So there's different triggers for daylight length for plants. Some plants need optimum amount of daylight hours in order to produce a fruit or a flower. In the case of leafy greens, they're not as sensitive to daylight. There are some crops that are daylight neutral. So what happens, once the hours change throughout the season, the plants can identify this, and when they go to sleep, they have pores in their leaves like you have pores in your skin. So when the plants are ready to shut down for the evening, they close those, what they're called stomata. They close those so they're not transpiring. Transpiring in a plant is them sweating, essentially. So as they take water in, they use it, they have all these chemical reactions that happen, they have to transpire that back out. So gases and moisture from the plant escape. So when they're ready to go to sleep, just like you are, they start shutting down for the night, and that's when they start to regenerate. And in the morning, as the daylight starts to become into daylight hours, those stomas start opening again. And they start physically taking up water and gases, and they start doing their exchange. And because we have cameras in here, I can flip through the time lapse on the cameras, and you can actually see the leaves move around as the plants. So we think it's all quiet until the cameras come on, and then you start seeing the plants move, and it looks like they're doing the wave if you go through the cameras. It's fun. The mission of these and the intent of these controlled environment agricultural units is to bring produce into high populated city centers or food deserts, places where fresh produce is not available to people, places where water is not available as well. You were going to have power. But trying to get community agriculture and getting fresh produce into these places is very important and is vital. These are clean, water efficient units. There's not a lot of chemical input, so there's not a lot of handling. There's less foodborne illness. We don't have animal intrusion. We don't have to apply insecticides. This is not an organic unit, but there are systems and units that can be organic, so you could go that way. We use synthetic fertilizer, so we don't fall into that. But they can be modified. This was a shipping container. There are old buildings, there are old greenhouses that have been augmented to use artificial light that can go into controlled environment agriculture. It is still evolving technology, so there's a lot to learn, and that's what we are doing at the University of Florida, and through this project, through EPRI and Seminole Electric, is we're trying to see if this is viable for the future of growing agriculture.
That freight farm really is cutting edge. Now, something else here at the North Florida Research and Education Center in Suwannee Valley, Live Oak, is the greenhouses. Now, Jay, can you tell us some of the vegetables that are typically grown in Florida?
So there are a lot of different vegetables grown in Florida. From South Florida to North Florida, there are different types of crops grown. I know down in South Florida, a lot of our winter vegetables that we get come from South Florida, and that's because of the warm climate down in South Florida compared to the rest of the lower 48 in the United States. So we have a lot of tomato production in Florida. That's a common vegetable that's produced. There's a lot of lettuce produced in Florida, and we just have a lot of vegetable production. It's kind of hard to narrow it down.
That's great. And Kelly, can you tell us what type of vegetables have been grown here in your greenhouses?
Yes, we grow a lot of vegetables in our greenhouses. We mainly do a lot with lettuce because we have a lettuce breeding program. And then, like I said, we have our hydroponic tomato class that's happening today. So we have a ton of breeds of tomatoes that are actually right behind us in a greenhouse. And then we'll also do kale that you just saw. And then beyond vegetables, like we've done herbs or edible flowers. And so there's a lot of different things you can do in greenhouses.
That sounds really cool. Now, we have another clip of Wanda introducing us to some of the tomatoes grown in a nearby greenhouse. So let's go watch that.
So we are now in our teaching greenhouse that we grow our vining crops in. We have a crop of greenhouse tomatoes right here. These are indeterminate tomatoes, meaning that they don't get vegetative and stop growing and then produce fruit. These guys keep going until, with a central leader, until we decide to turn them off. So greenhouse tomatoes are about a 9-month crop. We plant in September. We finish the crop in June. Part of what we do here is trying to get small farmers to have income 12 months out of the year. So greenhouse vining crops being usually a 9-month crop. During the summer months, that's time for growers to break down and clean up and get ready to start again. And they can diversify, and that's what we teach people, is they can use different structures, different crops to diversify, and so they get more than 9-month income out of the year. So we utilize these houses to do hands-on trainings and teaching because most people don't have access to this type of crop. They don't understand how to work it. So we initiate physiological disorders in the plant to try and show people how to remedy those. And we also test varieties for people in different companies, and we try to evaluate pests and diseases overall, and that's how we help our growers.
Now that we've explored the freight farm and greenhouse, let's head over for a question break.
Okay, so our first question is going to be, can you use hydroponics at home?
Yes, you can. And I'm going to give a demonstration for you guys today about how you can do hydroponics at home using a 5-gallon bucket.
Okay, so our next question is from Edgewood Junior Senior High, and it's, can hydroponics be utilized for citrus crops?
Yes, but I don't know if I would. You can grow there. If you do a quick Google search, you can probably find different articles of exactly how to grow citrus and hydroponically, but it would be kind of difficult mainly because they're trees and so they grow pretty tall. And so I don't know how realistic it would be at home or even on a large scale farm, but that you can absolutely do that.
Their roots are also very big, so it would be difficult to keep it in a water media, I would think.
Our next question, also from Edgewood Junior Senior High, is how is raising fish in aquaponics compared to hydroponics?
So that's a similar process where we're growing plants and vegetables out of water media. The difference is that we're not adding nutrients in the aquaponic system, or at least that's not the point of it. The point of it is to use the fish waste as the nutrients for the plants. So the fish eat and they produce waste, and the plants use those nutrients to be able to grow. And there are a lot of different types of fish that are grown aquaponically in that type kind of system. Some of you may have koi fish in backyard ponds. Tilapia are a common type of fish that are grown in more warm areas like Florida. And there are a lot of different fish that are grown aquaponically.
Marissa wants to know, what kind of plants do they grow here at the NFREC Suwannee Valley?
So we grow a lot of different types of plants. We have a lot of row crops, and so we have corn, peanuts, carrots, watermelon, but with greenhouses, we have our turmeric behind us. We also do cut flowers, edible flowers, herbs. We have succulents just mainly for our own fun here, and we have an entire orchard where we have chestnut trees, we have muscadine grapes that you can kind of see back there, and we have cold hardy citrus, pomegranates, persimmons. There's so many different things that we grow here. I highly recommend, if you're able to make a trip here, we would love to have you and give you a full tour.
How does the different color of light in the trailer affect the plant growth?
So it's kind of interesting because the plants use, they figured out that it's red and blue light that controls this photosynthesis. And so if I don't have my colors mixed up, which sometimes I do, red controls the width of the plant and blue controls the height. And so that's kind of where I know that they've been doing a little bit of tweaking on those lights, because sometimes the plant's growing a little too leggy, and so they're wanting it to grow a little bit fuller, and so they've been changing the ratio of how much red versus blue it's getting.
Orlando Colonial FFA wants to know if you can explain what a food desert is and how can this research address that problem?
So a food desert is an area where there is no access to fresh vegetables and produce, and this is an issue in areas of the country, especially certain rural areas where there aren't as many supermarkets present. In some urban areas, this might be an issue as well, where there isn't a source of food nearby that's healthy, fresh, vegetable produce. And, often we have access to junk food, but, we don't have access to fresh vegetables. So using greenhouses, and this is commonly done in urban areas, but it can be done anywhere, we can grow our own food and provide fresh vegetables and produce to the public.
Lisa wants to know if you have grown other plants besides tomatoes with hydroponics at the NFREC.
Yes, so we have several different growing systems here that are hydroponic. We have of course, you guys all saw all the kale that's in the smart garden that we have, but we also have an NFT system, which is a nutrient film technique. That's where we do all of our lettuce breeding programs. That's typically where our lettuce ends up being grown. We also have our typical ones that you saw in the tomatoes, where it's growing in peat, and we'll do cut flowers that way. We have tomatoes that way. You can kind of do almost anything that way. And then we have our hydroponic towers, which is just styrofoam little blocks that are kind of placed on top of each other. We've done edible flowers on that, peppers, we have done tomatoes on that as well. There's really and truly, we have done so many things. Usually what happens is that at our center, we're told, we think that this is going to be the next big crop, and we need to have research to be able to help our farmers. And so we'll end up getting a grant that helps fund that, like in the Seed It program, and that Seed It program helps fund whether we're growing herb towers or tomatoes, whatever it may be.
Orlando Colonial FFA wants to know if there are any other types of lights that can help grow plants.
Do you know?
I mean, there are many different types of lights that are used in greenhouse settings and hydroponic settings, and it depends on what you're growing and what kind of system you have.
Okay, our last question is also from Orlando Colonial FFA. Why are most hydroponic units white?
I'm not sure about that one,
Did you say, is it why are they mostly white, as in the color? Okay, so I'm going to take a guess at this only because of I've worked with Wanda so much, and I have been in greenhouses before in the middle of the summer doing some tests on our lettuce, and it can get 120 degrees in those greenhouses while you're working, and it's very miserable. And so you got to think white helps reflect sun away. You definitely don't want it to be black, because then it's just going to be a boiler unit inside there. It will get really horribly hot in there. So that would be my thought, especially since a lot of times we're growing things like lettuce that they can't tolerate a lot of heat. And so you want something that's going to help keep that sun reflecting away. And so that would be my main thought of exactly why that's happening.
Thank you both for answering those questions. I think that's all the questions we have for this segment. So as we mentioned at the beginning of the program, UF-IFAS Extension has an office with extension experts like Jay in every county around the state. And they help support local communities on a variety of agricultural and natural resource topics. We want to introduce you to another extension expert working with hydroponics in the Orange County area, and that's the Orlando area. Her name is Hannah Wooten, and she recorded a quick introduction video for us that we would like to show you now.
Orange County, and I love hydroponics. Hydroponics can be a successful, affordable, and pretty predictable way to grow your own food, especially when you don't have the ideal soil conditions, or if you're trying to grow food in something like a classroom environment. Hydroponics can be kind of complex. Like here, we've got lots of parts and pieces, moving, bubbling, circulating, but not all hydroponics has to be complicated. We can keep it simple and grow food in a bucket. In fact, I have taught people around the world how to use hydroponics successfully in a bucket, and you can find my YouTube video with over 600,000 views of people adopting this basic hydroponics method in their homes, in their classrooms, and beyond. And today, my friend Jay Capasso is going to teach you how you can set it and forget it with your own hydroponics bucket in the classroom. Jay, take it away.
Are we live? Now, Jay is going to show us a technique that Hannah will often teach growers in the Orlando area, and it is called Set It and Forget It Hydroponics. Jay, could you demonstrate how that works?
Of course. So I'm going to start out with talking about growing seedlings. So our first step is we have our grow cubes here. Basically what this does is it absorbs water, and we will put a plant seed into each of these. If they're new plant seeds that are of good quality, we'll put about 1 plant seed per grow cube. If it's an older plant seed, we'll probably put about 2. But what I'm going to use today is some lettuce seed that I put in my seeder here. I'm going to try to put in about 1 seed per grow cube. Alright, that one went in. He does not seem to want to come out of the hole. Let's see. I can just grab it out of here though. It is hard to grab just 1 seed at a time. That's why I was trying to use the gross seeder. I'm sorry? Okay, sure. Thank you. So you can see how small these lettuce seeds are. So that's why it's difficult to just put 1 in. And you can see I put a few in earlier, if you can see inside the grow cube. But generally all we'd want to do in each of these grow cubes is just put 1 seed or 2 seed per grow cube. And then the next step is that we want to add some water. So there's a few things that seeds need to be able to grow. One would be the right temperature, and different plants need different temperatures to be able to germinate, but they need to be kept at the right temperature, they need moisture, and they need the right light conditions to be able to grow. So I'm going to add some moisture. And basically what the grow cube is going to do is it's going to suck up the moisture, and it's going to move up the grow cube kind of where the seedlings are. And we don't want to have too much water in there because that will inhibit another thing that seeds need to grow, which is air. So we don't want to drown the seeds. We just want to provide enough water so the seeds can access it and be able to grow. So I think that'll be good there. And I'm going to cover this up, and these seedlings will take these seeds will take about 2 to 3 weeks to become seedlings. And lettuce is a dicot plant, meaning that as it grows, a root will come out of the seed, and then two leaves will come out as well, called cotyledons. And so that will happen over a 2 to 3 week period. And the next thing I need to do to be able to do hydroponics at home is prepare my water solution for hydroponics. So I think the first step with this will be taking a pH reading. I'm curious how many of you'll have to tell me in the comments, have taken a pH before for your at-home fish tank. But pH is basically the potential of hydrogen, and it measures the acidity and the alkalinity of a solution. Often we test the pH of our soils, of our fish tank at home, and we do the same thing for hydroponics. With a hydroponic pH, our water solution should be a pH about 5 to 6. And pH ranges from 0 to 7 and 7 to 14. So anything below 7 is an acidic pH. 7 is a neutral pH, and anything above 7 would be an alkaline pH. And that's very important. In the soil, most plants grow at a pH around 6.5, but some plants like blueberries or azaleas will grow at a lower pH. So it all depends on what kind of plant you're growing. But let's stick this pH strip in here, and it's going to give us a color. And we're going to match up the color to basically to our range here. And let's see, that looks like that's a lower pH than I thought. That's a 3. I used this one earlier, so I'm wondering, actually wait, I think I just have it the wrong way, don't I? I do. Okay, so that looks like a neutral pH. That's what I was expecting. Let's see over here if it's, yeah, it's about a 7 pH. So that's what I was expecting. That means that we want to acidify our water solution a little bit. And one way we could do that at home, you may be able to find it in your food pantry at home, is white vinegar, distilled white vinegar. And we're going to add about 10 teaspoons of distilled white vinegar to this water solution. So let's get my teaspoon. And I'm not going to take the time to measure out 10 of them, but I just want to give you guys an example of what you would do. So we're going to add this in the water solution. Now I would do that 9 more times. The other thing we're going to need to prepare our water solution for hydroponics will be nutrients. Plants need nutrients just like we do. Plants are a little bit different than us though. Plants need nutrients that come from the soil or come from the water solution. We get our nutrients from food, and we also get our energy from food. And it's interesting because I hear very smart people, even professional agronomists who make a lot of money consulting farmers, and they'll call things like fertilizers plant food. And they are in a way, they provide the nutrients, but unlike what food does for us in providing us energy, plants get their energy from the sun through photosynthesis. So plants are a little bit different. They get their nutrients from the soil, or in this case, the hydroponic water solution, and they get their energy from the sun. So in this case, we're going to use a Miracle-Gro, and we're going to add this in. And according to the label here, we're going to add about, let's see, about a half teaspoon of Miracle-Gro for every single gallon of water that we have here. So we have 5 gallons of water. So I'm going to open this up. And look at this. They even provided me a teaspoon in here. And there are many different types of solution that you could use. Some will be a liquid solution. So you always want to read the label on the back of the container, or Google online to see how much of the particular product that you're using to add into the nutrient solution. Let's see if I can get this open. It's a little stuck there. And we're going to add about a half teaspoon per gallon. So I'm going to put about 2.5 teaspoons, so that we're putting a half teaspoon per the 5 gallons. And then we're going to mix all of this around so that it's well mixed for our plants. Now that it's nice and mixed, and we would add a little bit more vinegar if we were actually going to go through with this. We might add a little bit of Epsom salt as well, which provides some plant nutrients like magnesium sulfate in there as well to help the plants grow. And then we would cover up our bucket, and we're going to add these plants in. Unfortunately, our lettuce is not ready yet, but we do have some parsley and some basil plants that we can add in here. And I would probably add just a little bit more water because we want it to be about halfway full. So then we would leave the plants in here, and they have all the water they need. We would just want to check the level of water periodically, and it's set it and forget it. We can leave the plants out to grow, and when we're ready to harvest, maybe after 2 to 3 weeks or so, we would come in and we would just cut the plants off so that we'd be ready to harvest. And lettuce looks beautiful when it's completely grown out. Sometimes it's tough to want to go in and cut up the lettuce, but it also tastes great on the dinner plate as well with some salad dressing.
Thank you, Jay. That was such a great demonstration and such an easy and fun thing to do at home to kind of grow your own herbs or vegetables. We'll make sure that your teachers get a link to Hannah's blog that includes some materials and steps that you would need to build a little hydroponic system at home if you're interested. Now that we've completed our demonstration, we are going to do one last round of questions. So please, if you have any questions for Jay or for Kelly, please send them in our chat, and we're going to go over to our Q&A now for questions.
Our first question is, can you grow hemp or cannabis in hydroponics?
Yes, you can. That's not something that we're doing currently at the center. In order to do research on hemp and cannabis, you actually have to have a lot of security measures in place. And so we don't exactly have that here in order to be able to do that. But, I mean, hydroponics was kind of started by the cannabis and hemp industry. They are the forefront people. They know a lot about it. And so, yeah, we do a lot of, we don't do a lot of that, but you can do that.
Our next question is, what is the right temperature for lettuce seeds?
You want it?
So I don't have the exact temperature off my head.
About 60 degrees.
About 60 degrees. I know that generally in Florida we're growing lettuce depending where we are. In South Florida you're doing it in the winter. Here we're doing it in the fall generally, or in the spring. So it all depends on where you are and when you'd want to grow lettuce, unless you're growing indoors and you can control the temperature.
Yeah, so lettuce actually really likes cold temperatures. When it gets a little chilly like this, it really enjoys that. But anywhere between 60 and 70 degrees, it's happy. We have grown lettuce in our greenhouse system, and it's been pretty miserable in there for them. The issue with lettuce is that the hotter the temperatures get, the more chance of it to flower and bolt, and that's a bad thing. And the reason why it's a bad thing is that the lettuce turns bitter whenever it starts to flower and bolt.
Kayla wants to know, where can you get the stuff you're using to make your project?
So a lot of this could be purchased at your local hardware store or garden supply store. You can get a 5-gallon bucket at Tractor Supply or Lowe's, and the rest of this could be bought at a local garden store. And we use a drill to be able to kind of make these holes, and they're about 2-inch in diameter, and so that they could fit these little baskets for our plants. And the rest can be purchased at a garden store.
Kayla also wants to know, how much sunlight do you need to grow your plants?
So you want, it depends on the plant. Certain plants need more sunlight than others, but generally you want full sunlight. And I guess it just depends on the plant.
Okay, our last question is, any advice for students watching about how to get into a career similar to yours or in soil?
So I did my master's in soil science, and I did a minor in it in college. And there are a lot of different career options in soil. There are options with the United States Department of Agriculture. After graduating with my master's, I had a job offer with them, and I decided to go and work for the university at the University of Florida instead. And there are a lot of options in industry as well. I think I said last time that there aren't as many farmers as there used to be, but for every farmer that there is, you need somebody selling them fertilizer, selling them seed, selling them different agricultural inputs. You need people working at the United States Department of Agriculture. You need people working in extension and research. So there's a lot of people in the agricultural industry that are doing work that isn't necessarily, conducting production agriculture themselves, but to support production agriculture. And there are a lot of jobs in soil science that, focus on the environmental science side of things that aren't technically 100% agriculture related. They may be doing work with septic tanks. They may be monitoring water quality in urban areas. So there are a lot of jobs in the environmental sciences and the agricultural sciences as well.
Thank you so much, Jay and Kelly, for answering those questions for us and for being here during our electronic field trip. And thank you for tuning in. Please follow streamingscience.com for more of student-driven ag communication projects. Before we go, I would like to do a little introduction of our team here that's been putting on this program for you. Over at our Q&A station, we have Marissa and Annabelle. Our director is Lexi. She's been the one switching between iPads so everyone gets a good shot. And on our cameras, we have Maddie and Maggie. And so thank you, everyone, for tuning in today. And we will see you in the spring for our next EFT.